Hi, everyone. My name is Krista of Practical Astros, and I'm here with my new friend Faith. Hi, Faith. Thanks for joining.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to be here.
Sure, yeah. I found Faith on Substack. You just like popped into the algorithm and you wrote this article. Actually, I will go ahead and share this. Read this article that got my attention. Can decor actually change your life? And I read it and I was like, yes, 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 yes. Like so much of it I just completely resonated with. So I read a little bit more about what Faith does, and I won't spoil too much. I'll let Faith kind of provide her bio, but basically Faith is an astrologer. She focuses on astrocartography, astromapping, local space, and financial astrology. They do readings and leading a retreat in France next year. I really love it. It's like Astro Chateau, which is
Yeah.
like super, super cool. It's April of next year, so we can talk about that at the end if you want. Um, but it was just really nice and refreshing to get connected to a new astrologer and to kind of learn more about what you do because it was like super sparkly and exciting just to read about your work. So tell me like how you got to become an astrologer, where did you come from, and speak a little bit about your practice.
I've been studying astrology for about 9 years now. So I've always been like that what's your sun sign girl as a kid. But around 2017, 2018, I really like dug deep into, okay, let's really learn how to do this. That's when I started practicing on myself or like really breaking down my chart, studying other people's chart, giving readings. That's when I also started my tarot journey. And if you're into tarot, then you know that, there is some astrology there as well. So it really kind of all coincided. I discovered astrocartography around 2021. I feel like in 2020, that's when it was really like this new rediscovery of astrocartography, or just the term itself. But if you are in the astrocartography world, you know that that term was popularized by Jim Lewis, but astromapping has been around for centuries and used by ancient civilizations. I pretty much began practicing astrocartography a couple of years ago, actually professionally. I wanted to combine my love for travel as well as just spirituality and astrology, and I figured that was the perfect way to do it. I fully got my confidence after I did a certification with Helena Woods, under her course. And from there, I continued my self-studies. I'm a bookworm. So even before I took her course, I was already kind of reading up on it and like, can I do this? Do I want to do this for other people or just kind of keep it to myself? And then eventually I was like, you know what? Why not? And it has been a very rewarding practice, just really meeting so many different people and learning how you can use locational astrology, not just to travel or to relocate, but just in business and life. And as we are going to discuss, even within decor. But I'll pause there for a second.
Well, so that brings me to a question. I know some
hmm
people will like try to hack their solar return by like traveling to a different place. It's like you
Yes.
don't change your solar return chart, but it does influence like your local space chart. Like, can you explain the difference between astrocartography, like using a natal chart versus a
Mm,
local space chart, because they are coming at it from different perspectives. And I have an image of here from, we're recording on July 23rd at 1 p.m. I'm in
hmm
Asheville, North Carolina. So this is like the astrocartography map as if this conversation had a birth chart. What's the difference
Yes.
between this as opposed to, like, I went to New York City for my birthday 2 years ago because I love New York, but I
Mm.
was like, I'm not going to get that much of a different solar return chart, even if I wanted to. What's your opinion on that? And then can you explain the difference between the two?
So first, let's start with the difference between astrocartography and local space. So both are a sector of locational astrology. But astrocartography is just essentially astromapping. It's just a term that was created to describe the astromapping onto a geography map. So with this map, these are lines that are showing you where the planets are on angles. Okay, so you have four angles on a birth chart: the ascendant, the descendant, the MC, and the IC. So these lines represent where these planets planetary bodies were on an angle. And it is pretty stationary unless you go into the timing version of astrocartography, which would be cyclocartography. And that is when you animate the map in some type of professional astrological software. Now, this is kind of where we're still looking at where the planets were on an angle in the ecliptic realm versus when we look at local space, we are looking at what's called the azimuth, which is where it's like if you brought the planets down to where you are with your feet on the ground, how would that look? So to give people who may need a more visual terminology, if you think about like The Incredibles and when Violet pushes out her force field, it's a bubble around her, right? Or any type of cartoon where they kind of push out this magic, it's like a bubble that's created around them. That bubble is, it kind of describes the azimuth. So it's like the 360 around you. So when you are looking at a local space map, you still have these lines, but they're projected out on astro.com is represented as like a pin drop. So it's these lines that are projected out. The astrocartography map is based on your birth chart and a combination of the information that you would see in various relocated charts. So like if you were born in Asheville, North Carolina, and that's your birth chart, but then you go to New York, then you would have a relocated chart for New York. For local space, you also have a local space chart, also referenced as a compass chart, and you can relocate that as well. But it really just depends on, like you just said, how far you go to see what changes. And local space can get complicated pretty quickly because even within the local space compass charts, sometimes the aspects within that chart versus your very own birth chart looks different because we're not looking at it from a sky perspective, we're looking at it from the azimuth and altitude perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it just really kind of puts a perspective on like sometimes you just move to some place and it just doesn't work. And you're like,
Yeah.
this should work. Like why like all these other external pieces are in place, but I just cannot find my groove, or it's like things keep falling out of place. Or like I did not expect this to work as well as it did. It's
Hmm.
like just recognizing the like local mapping feels like a really organic movement sort of energy exchange of astrology where you really are the center of it. And I like the idea of the bubble. It's like you're moving
Yes.
around. It's like your energetic or auric fields are like shown in your local map space. And so that's going to change based on the alchemy of your external environment. So
Yes.
yeah, I like that explanation.
Yes. And one thing I want to add before we move on from this is a lot of times local space will be used with astrocartography. It's usually used as an additional layer on an astrocartography map when you're receiving a reading from a reader. So keep that in mind, but it can be completely used alone. Like we can use it by itself. We don't need astrocartography, but that comes up a lot. Like when you are discussing local space, they're like, oh, so what about the lines? And it's like you can be under a beautiful astrocartography line, but like you just said, if you're in a certain part of that city, you have different local space lines that you're also interacting with, and that's how you're activating different parts of your chart. So yeah.
And so do you use like essential dignities or just like the condition of a planet to be like, if
Yes.
you don't have like a really like, I love my Venus placement. I think she's
Mm,
great. And so like, and I've been to my Venus lines before and just had
mhm.
like an absolutely gorgeous time. A well dignified moon and they're in mutual reception. And so like when I'm in a moon line or a Venus line, I generally have like a really good time because it's a reflection of my chart. But does local
Yes.
space also work that way? Like if I don't have a really well or a happy Saturn, like being like the Saturn sector may give me some trouble or to run into roadblocks. Does it work kind of like that too?
It works very similarly, yes. And when it comes to decor, that is, we're working with the physical space, right? So if you are having an unhappy Saturn, Venus, or even a moon, where it's like, it's a little bit of a struggle here within the charts, then you can use your physical space to remediate that or alleviate some of those issues that may come up with that placement.
That's fascinating that you can do that. So, I'm just going to move to this one here. So, Can you describe like how you would do that? Like say you had a client and they moved into a new apartment and they
Hmm.
needed help with their moon
Hmm.
space, or the moon sector of their house. Like
Hmm.
how does what's the logistics of figuring that out? And then what solutions might you offer to somebody that's specifically looking at help in that area?
Okay, so well, first things first, let's talk about actually how to pull up a local space chart and then overlay it onto your floor plan. So I'll stick with the example that we have. If you don't have your floor plan of your house and you're listening to this, you can always draw it out. But especially if you live in an apartment or some type of rental property, or even when you're buying homes, normally the floor plan is displayed somewhere. So try to find that. And then you can use astroseeks.com. They have a local space chart generator. And if you don't live in the same city that you were born, don't worry. They have a spot where you can put in a new location and pull that up. And then take your compass. Usually iPhones and I'm pretty sure Androids have a compass on their apps, and just make sure that you are using True North. And on the chart, it'll have the compass where it'll show where north, east, south, and west are. So line it up to that chart and figure out for your home what directions are going through what. If you have a pretty much all the lines are going to be like diagonal on the chart, if that makes sense. So if you have a moon line going through the right hand corner of your house, it's going to go all the way through. So just remember that it's like dual sided in a way. Um, but from there, let's say you're in this one room and you have just, your Saturn is in fall, such as myself. So I have Saturn in Aries, right? So when you are remediating that placement, you can create an altar in that corner for Saturn, right? You can kind of emphasize or add in Venusian energy because Saturn is very, very happy in Libra, right? So you can add that in different ways through color, texture, the altars, if you want to add in a little bit of practical magic. You can do this in a variety of ways to kind of alleviate that using your actual environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So like if a client came to you and they just want
Mm-hmm.
that maybe they have a specific thing that they're looking to address, what
Mm-hmm.
you're going to look at is just identify their whole chart and their whole space. And
Yes.
then depending on what they're looking at, I mean, have you had a client come to look at one thing, but then you see something like that is equally as helpful that maybe they hadn't considered before? I mean, it seems like that kind of a reading this kind of a reading is very curated to specific people's needs.
Yes, because that's, you definitely have to tie in the interior design aspect to it because at the end of the day we are working with space, and the big thing with interior design is you want something that's functional, right? Like most people don't hire a interior designer or decorator just for the looks. It's also like, well, this looks pretty, but can I actually use it?
Yeah.
So it is very curated in the sense of, yes, you may come to me saying, hey, can you decorate my house? Or hey, I have this placement that I'm struggling with. But a lot of times I try to identify the pros and cons of everything in their chart if I can. And it also depends on how much space are we working with, because on the one end, you may have someone who's like, hey, can you look at my whole house? Some people don't have access to the whole house. And what I mean by that is like, if you're in a roommate situation, we may want to dial it into just the room, right? Even though I'll also highlight, okay, when you go to this common area, these are the energies that you are working with. Now, at that point, I'm probably not looking at your roommate's chart as well, but at least when you walk over to the living room, if you have a Mars line and that Mars, it might be neutral, it might be in fall, or just overall, I'm noticing that you're a pretty fiery person, then it wouldn't surprise me if you're starting to get into arguments in that area or things like that. So it's like just be mindful of when you are in those areas and what can you place or decorate, use your decor elements to kind of alleviate or make that energy work for you.
So do you like, as an astrologer, you kind of
Hmm.
will go through your own charts or your friends' charts or your family's charts. Like as someone that looks at it from a design perspective,
Hmm.
that was kind of the article that got my attention is like, you said something like, I already did it, so you don't have to. I already figured out that decor can change your life So what are some
Mm-hmm.
personal like experiences that you had just within your own space or someone near to
Mm-hmm.
you where you made these changes? Like how quickly does change happen, or what do you
Mm-hmm.
start to see or feel after you implement some of this wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, all throughout that article, I talk about my experience with transforming my home office and this essentially a boost of confidence and like speaking and things like that when it comes to social media, because I was interacting with my moon line, a little bit of my Mercury line, and my Pluto line. But also just with family and friends or clients, I would say it depends on how sensitive you are, but it could take a couple of months to really activate as far as these changes. But if you're more sensitive, it could also seem right away. I think what I've noticed is when someone gets to the point where they're like, especially women, I primarily work with women, when they get to the point where like, all right, I want to change, I want to redecorate this, it's like you are
They're
already
ready.
kind of they're ready for that
Yeah,
change, right? So what I've noticed is, and this kind of goes into color theory as well, is playing around with the colors, playing around with the textures, or just looking at what materials may already be present in your home because some architectural things we cannot change in our house, right? But there are a lot of things that you can. So for example, something as simple as green kind of invoking a little bit more calm, a more calming feel to someone, especially if Mercury is around. And Mercury is great for a lot of things, but too much of mercurial energy or just mental activity can cause like a lot of anxiety. So
insomnia.
in some, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So using those colors, those kind of soft linens or maybe velvets, kind of add that Venusian relaxation into there. Green is also traditionally ruled by Venus as well. I mean, I feel like depending on the hue, you can kind of get various rulerships with colors, which is another thing that I want to talk about. But in general, we'll just stick to the basics for this conversation. You see a lot of, you can remediate a lot of moodiness, number one, but two, a lot of these things can also be reflected in the aspects of your chart. So it's really working with those aspects and saying, okay, what do we want to minimize? What do we want to highlight? What do we want to create more of within these different design principles and astrological principles?
I love that. So uh, I um I use colors, for, different days and different
Mm-hmm.
transits. I'm very I love color.
Mm-hmm.
But can you just run through like if somebody wants to connect with, wants to activate their Mars a bit more
Yeah.
or wants to connect to Jupiter or get Jupiter's attention, like can you run through the planets and just some top of mind colors? I know that there's a big spectrum of color. But like, what are the ones that come to mind for the planets for you?
Yes. So for me, it would definitely be, and sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes here, so I'm making sure I don't forget anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But for me, I'm just gonna go through the primary and secondary colors because that's normally what you begin to work with, and then you kind of bounce around from there. So starting off with red, usually associated with Mars, while it is very, I'll talk about the planet and then I'll also just talk about the psychological effects when you put this color in a space.
Yeah, that's great.
Um, so it is very stimulating, normally very energizing. It raises a little bit of heat in your body or just in your psyche, or overall like raising your appetite. So normally you may see this like near shared spaces like kitchen, dining rooms, or some type of accent wall to kind of invoke that boldness. So this is great if you are really looking to ignite your fire in some way, whether that's personally or whether that's, you want more energy around the house. But too much of it obviously can become overwhelming or a little bit aggressive. So you want to keep that in mind. The next color would be yellow, which is ruled by the sun. So this is great for that psychologically. Yellow is very uplifting. You can feel really stimulated, really joyful, really optimistic in a yellow room or a room that has a lot of yellow accents or yellow as a complementary color. But the overuse of it can be similar to that mercurial energy, and sometimes Mercury rules different types of yellows, where it is like, all right, we're getting a little restless here, going back to that insomnia, like it'll probably be hard to sleep in a yellow room. Um, so That's one. The next one would be blue. Normally I associate a deep, nice, rich blue with Jupiter, but different shades or hues can also be Venus or Mercury. Blue is normally pretty calm or cooling, though. It's usually associated with some type of rest or trust, sometimes royalty. As you'll see it most common in bedrooms and bathrooms, but too much blue can just make you feel a little bit cold, a little isolated, really not in touch. So you want to keep that in mind.
It's a really
We've
good
already,
point. Yeah, for blue.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I briefly touched on green, but going back to green, it really represents balance, renewal. We see green the most in nature, right? So it automatically kind of tranquilizes us, calms us down. It's pretty versatile. You can kind of put it in any room. It also works. You see it a lot in living rooms, offices, bedrooms. That's probably the most common one. However, too much of it is like you don't want to be too zenned out, right? Especially when you want more of that Martian energy where you want to get work done or you want to get moving. The moon and Saturn can also be created or associated with different types of green as well. Next, we have orange. So, orange would be ruled by the sun. Sometimes different versions of Mercury or different versions of orange will be ruled by Mercury, or like if you had a red
Different versions of
orange.
Mercury also tracks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, if you have like a red orange, then that would be like a combo of Mercury and Mars. But normally orange is more warm, it's social, it's energizing. It's a little bit softer than red, so it's not like that, we gotta go assert ourselves, but it's just more like, hey, we're having a
Maybe
good
we could
time
do
kind of
this.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's great for social spaces like living rooms, playrooms is a big one, or just overall anywhere where you kind of want to add a little bit of fun, but not overdoing it. It just really encourages like conversation and connection. But I wouldn't put that in a place where you do want to be more calm, or it may become a little bit overbearing. The next one would be purple, normally ruled by Jupiter. Different versions will be ruled by Venus or Saturn. But usually, psychologically, purple promotes a luxury, this heightened aesthetic, this creativity, this royalty, often introspection as well, especially when you go to those softer purples, like more of like a lilac color. That's really nice. Usually, you will see these in bedrooms and living rooms or more so creative spaces. Darker purples will feel a little bit more dramatic, but overall, it kind of invokes that grandiose feeling of Jupiter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Black would be ruled by Saturn traditionally. So it's gonna definitely be more grounded, more authoritative. Black absorbs heat as well. So just from a design perspective, you want to make sure if you're putting black in the front room like that, that might be your style, right? But if you are more of a hot-natured person, then that might be an issue. You might want to have some extra HC in there, et cetera, et cetera. But it normally fuels sophistication, seriousness. It is kind of a protective energy as well. Obviously, Saturn, we're thinking restrictions, we're thinking boundary, discipline. Um, it helps with any type of trim, accents. You can obviously you see a lot of black in furniture. Too much can feel heavy or make the space feel a little bit small. So keep that in mind as well. And then lastly, I'll just touch on white. So white would traditionally be ruled by the moon or Neptune. Think clean girl aesthetic. It feels clean, it feels calm, it feels expansive, sometimes even expensive. It opens up the space. It kind of adds in a different layer and it allows color to bounce off of it instead of absorb it like black. So it can make the room feel a lot airier, a lot brighter, a lot lighter. But the overuse of it, the room will feel a little bit sterile and a little like, okay, it's no life in here kind of thing. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I love all those. It's funny when you're talking about too much use of green. Like I can see, I've been in houses where it's just like that kind of sage green everywhere. And then like
Everywhere.
kind of this almost like a sage gray. And it's just
Yeah.
like the most boring house. But it's like it doesn't have that like agitation of the Mercury colors or like the amplification of Mars or the sun. It's like, I want some pop, it's a
Yes.
great foundation, but then have some pop of color. And that's just my style. Like I love big bright colors, which is too agitating sometimes, you know. But when
Right.
you were describing that, you know, too much of a green, because I always have a green room. I've had a green room everywhere I've lived since was born. Usually would have a green and yellow room or my
Mm-hmm.
combinations when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but like the bland neutral homes, they're just boring to me. Maybe it works for the people. Hopefully it works for the people that have them, but it's just not my style. And I just recognize that it's not my style.
Yeah. So
Um,
it sounds like you may like more complementary colors or like the colors on the opposite side of the color wheel. You see that a lot with sports teams. So the teams that have
mm-hmm.
the orange and the blue or the green and the red, it's like
Yeah.
it's adding that diversity to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and it's you know, coming from I study feng shui in the different schools of feng shui
Hmm.
and in Chinese astrology there's different animal years. You know, most people know like what year you were born. Like I was born in the year of the monkey, but
Hmm.
there's the energy, the animal energy of the month, the day, and the hour, and each of those has
Hmm.
kind of an aesthetic to it. And if you have the
Oh.
rooster in your chart, usually you like these bright, bold colors. And I was born in the hour of the rooster, and so that's what I've always like.
Ah.
I've always had that like vividness, that kind of cockiness of like, look at my plumage, you know, like I want to like
Yeah.
have bright colors and have big patterns, and just seeing kind of the similarities with design through feng shui, because that's mostly how I practiced it. Is there's different schools. There's one, it's called the Flying Star School. And so there's
Hmm.
different energies. You can kind of think of them like winds that move from a direction. So when you're talking about how the moon line might go from one corner of the house, but it goes all the way through to the other corner of the house. That's
Hmm.
similar in feng shui of like how the different stars will bring in. It's like a wind blowing through, and some of them are helpful and some of them are harmful. And every year
Yeah.
it shifts. So it's like you can live in a house for years, and some years,
Hmm.
you know, a sector of your life, which is represented by a sector of your house, which you can see in local mapping, you can see in your cartography, and you can see in other schools like feng shui. You just have an
Hmm.
easier time, more support, more beneficial wind, or just you just run up against things and it's just more difficult. So it's
Yeah.
fascinating to play around with it from a feng shui perspective. And that I think that's what made me really curious about coming from it from a local space perspective, of just being able
Yeah.
to see it within kind of the Western astrology lens, just to see like how you work with it and doing something very practical in the use of colors and making things nicer and prettier. There's also something about just giving something attention of like, you know, my bathroom is like the north sector of my house, which in feng shui, like that's the career. And so making
Mm.
sure that the toilet seat doesn't stay open, because I don't want
Yeah.
all of the energy just to go, all of my efforts to go down the drain, like really basic functional things like that, and having things that
Mm.
support the energy there. So I wondered just like what you did with local space of like, say somebody wanted to enhance their career or like really make a break in their career or
Yeah.
whatever it is, like the career focus, like what would you look at within the local map,
Hmm.
um both within the map, but then like would you look at the planets that are maybe near the condition of those planets? How would
Yeah.
you like say somebody had their bathroom in the career corner or the
Hmm.
career sector, like what are some things that you might suggest to them?
The number one thing with any type of focused intent like that, like, okay, love, we look at Venus, money, we look at Jupiter. It'll be similar to like the regular astrocartograph, I'm sorry, astrological birth chart as
Mm-hmm.
far as like what planet I'm looking at. So anything where you're focusing on a specific thing and that area of your house, the first thing I'm going to recommend is it clean? And that sounds so
That's
simple,
it's basic though.
but what I've noticed is like when you are accumulating certain stuff, it is like amplifying that energy. So you want to make sure number one, is it clean? What do you how do you feel in there? Do you enjoy your shower time? Do you adorn yourself in this place? Obviously, if we're talking about career, we're not necessarily talking about Venus. Obviously, I will be looking to see, you know, what you have in your financial houses within your birth chart. And then obviously looking at how those planets interact in your local space chart, because it can be very similar, or sometimes the planets may be closer together or a little bit further together in the local space chart just because it's a little bit different. However, I'm looking at all of that and I'm seeing, okay, how it from a physical perspective, how is everything lined up? Do we need to move a specific picture over because you have this picture of, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but it was a trend a couple of years ago where people would put their pet dogs taking a poo as like a black and white picture in their bathroom. So if you have something funny like that and it's in the Jupiter line or the Venus line, or even like if you're a CEO, if your sun line is going through your bathroom and you're pooping on that line or your dog is pooping on that line, okay, is that bringing in good energy or not?
Is that what you
Or
want to happen? Yeah,
is
yeah.
that what you want to? Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it is very specific in a way, but it's also these basics matter, right? So for example, I've had a client where she wanted to work on love and, tapping more into her emotions, but the room where the moon was touching I'm like, okay, what's going on in there? And it's clutter. We need to organize. We need structure here. And we don't necessarily have to bring in more Saturn, but if this room is a mess, this could also be a physical manifestation of that energy within your chart or
Like she didn't
with,
know what she wanted, almost. Like I have
yes.
a lot of conflicting things that I desire, but I haven't really taken the time to sort out exactly what it is that I want.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I've noticed in my own life, when I am just feeling bewildered and hopeless, I walk into my closet and one of the prominent lines going through my closet is my Pluto line. And if my closet is a mess, if I have unfolded laundry, I'm like, oh, well, that tracks.
Mhm. Like
So
the
it's
practice of folding it kind of help like harmonize a little bit more.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And you can obviously always bring in representations for these planets that may boost your, goal. Going back to the career example, if you're putting, put a money candle in the corner where Jupiter may hit, or if the moon is the only thing going through your bathroom, okay, you can add in these planets to kind of help with that. But just going back to, I think the original example was okay, if your career is, your career line is going through your bathroom, you can add in little things, maybe some pyrite, maybe some what's aventurine, carnelian,
Carnelian,
yeah.
yeah.
You can add in these things to kind of boost that and help with that. And it's really simple, but those little things can truly make a difference if you're choosing to, focus and use this modality in this way.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And it seems like good, just experiment for 30 days, like find your locality,
Yeah,
in one day, for 30 days, just I think cleaning is like a lost art of
it
magic.
is. It is. It really
It's
is.
like cleanliness is next to godliness. It's like it's not a matter of being sterile or unlived in, but it's a sliver of your attention to this one sector of your life. And
Yeah.
where your attention goes, your energy flows. So it's like just giving attention to one sector of your life and then write it down. I cleaned my junk drawer out today and this line runs through it. Let's
Yeah.
watch this and see what happens. This is what I did
What
with the
happens?
stuff. I gave it away or I threw it away or I
Yeah.
relocated it. Is that replicated in my experience of this line? That's just
Yes.
really fascinating. So you can go to AstroSeek and find, are you putting in your address? Or are you putting in your coordinates? Like how do you get it so specific to
Um,
your living space?
So you can do one of two things, or you can do both actually. So for the chart, the compass chart itself, you would just put in your city. But if
Okay.
you really want to get specific as far as, okay, for this specific city, what lines are going through my neighborhood or whatever, you can pull up the map on astro.com. You would go to I think it's free horoscopes, locational astrology, and astro click local space.
Okay.
But in order to do for the home, I actually draw it out, or what I do is go in Canva and kind of create a transparent chart and then put that over, like how you have this floor plan. I would just overlay that on top. And on that actual article on my site, you can see where I've done that with a sample chart. Yeah, right there. You can kind of see like, but again, you have to click on, or you have to keep in mind like how it has those dotted lines. It goes through both sides.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to notice what you're doing. That's for one room. I think you will have the most freedom, in my opinion, if you do it for your whole house, if you have access to your whole house. But if you're in that roommate style living situation, then
Hmm.
obviously you would just break it down to one room. The fun thing about local space is you can make it as, large as you want to or as granular as you want to. Is really up to you. But those are a few layers that I look at. Like, okay, obviously, since I'm an astrocartographer, I look at your astrocartography lines just to see, like, okay, what are some overarching themes? But then really I'm focused on what lines are running through where, what is actually going on in that room right now. Like a lot of people, they may have a clean bathroom or a clean bedroom or closet or whatever, but it's like they hate the decor in there. They just hate how it looks.
And so they don't like the feeling when they're in there. And that's so
Exactly.
powerful. Yeah.
It is, yeah. And let's say you do have supportive lines going through there. Sometimes we just need that visual aesthetic. We need that spruce up of that energy or to revive that energy because sometimes the energy is just stale, right? Sometimes you just need to move things around, remove things. Like you may have a beautiful office and Venus goes through there or Mercury goes through there, but it's just something you're not feeling good about it. Maybe your aspects aren't the issue. Maybe it's just you have a teddy bear sitting on your desk from your ex from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That stale energy that you wouldn't think, but you need to clear that out.
Yeah. Yeah, just the concept of clutter, there, depending on your aesthetic, you might like things and you might like to
Yeah.
look at a lot of things and you may not. But
Yeah.
if you're in the camp, like on my end of the spectrum where we like shit, we like
Mhm.
things, we like to collect and you just like a lot of stuff. What that
Mhm.
represents is that you have a diversity of interests. You appreciate things for their aesthetic, but too much of it doesn't honor any of it. And
Yes.
so the process of it, doing things like this, I don't think are saying you have to be a minimalist. It's just
No.
like making sure that, like in retail, I spent so many years in retail. It's like every time you touch a product, it loses its value
Yeah.
because like if you have to move it over and over and over again before someone buys it, it just kind of loses it. Like the life force is drained. And I kind of see that with stuff too. Like if I'm not
Yeah.
appreciating it because I can't see it because it's buried or it's behind some things or I forgot I even owned it, it's like that's just stuck energy. And that
It
means that
is.
I'm not allowing the things that I really do care about. And so clearing it out, honoring, yeah, I loved where I was when I bought this, or who I was when I got this, or I've appreciated it
Mhm.
for this many years, and it can go on and have another life with someone else. And I can, appreciate it and let it go. And then that leaves more space for new things, or that just
Exactly.
leaves more space. So,
Exactly.
that's just the constant thing that I play with. I don't struggle with it. I play with it because I love stuff. I love crafts and color and textures and to play around and move around with it. So regardless of where you're at, I think that this is just like a practical thing that you can play with. And I ask you like how you do this, but what I would
Mhm.
recommend is people just go to your website and book a reading because you just have
Yeah.
a wealth of resources of that, and especially something like this is such a curated sort of um, reading to look
Yeah.
at someone's chart, their natal chart, to look at their map, to look at their local space, talk to them about their needs, like their emotional and spiritual wants, and then
Hmm.
look within the space and then see how to alchemize like a potential path for that. Like to me,
Yeah.
that it's well worth the paying a professional like you to be able to do that. So anybody listening that's interested in that, it's faithgraceinspires.com, and you can read all about faith. And there's a booking here for readings. You have a
Yes.
beautiful website. The aesthetics of your website are really nice.
Thank you.
Um,
So I
but
actually, this would be under packages. So pretty much what I've come to the conclusion is I was trying to figure out, okay, what would my larger package be? But I didn't want to do coaching. So this is my form of coaching where we're working together for, anywhere from a month to 3 months, depending on how long this takes. And we are really getting your space together.
I love it. Yeah, it's really well thought out, and it's someone like you to set someone up to be able to, because I feel like if you go through this, then you, especially with in such a long span of time for to do it for a couple of
Yeah.
months, it really feels like it's you would be able to experience the effect of that and be able to carry
Yeah.
that forward.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Do you want to talk about the retreat that's coming up next spring? Like what's
Yes.
that all about?
Really quick, I didn't mention it, but Local Space was created by Michael Earlywine. I didn't say that, but it's all over my
Okay.
website.
Okay.
But yeah. So the retreat, Astro Chateau, it is a retreat with three astrologers, myself and Aubrey Howdeshell and Kim E. Moat. So we came together because we wanted to kind of have like the Hogwarts of astrocartography or astro mapping in a French chateau. So we'll be going through everything, not just astrocartography. It's pretty much a locational astrology retreat where if you're a beginner, that's okay. We'll take you from zero to hero, basically. And then we also have more advanced courses where we're talking about things like local space and how to apply it to your decor. We're talking about the geodetic map, which is more so looking at the maps from a mundane perspective. And I've done some of that over on YouTube as far as like a couple of Black History events, as well as looking at like the US and Iran airstrikes. You can check that out if you are curious. As well as cyclocartography would be another advanced topic that we cover. And the main thing is we just want to be in a house full of astrology lovers. So
Yeah, in
we're really
France.
excited. Yeah. So we're really excited. That will be next spring in April of 2027. Now, I will caveat and say at the time of this recording, it is summer 2026, and there are two active trademarks out for the term astrocartography. So
Yeah.
we may have to change the wording. And, if we have any issues with that as far as it being in France, then we may have to postpone it. But as of right now, we are still charging forward. And if you're in the astrological community, it has
Yeah.
been a fight with this. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, hopefully you can still do it even if you have to call it something different.
Yeah.
If I didn't even bring that up, I was like, should we? Maybe. Yeah, it's relevant.
Yeah.
Well, that looks amazing. And then sooner than that, you're doing a vision board party on August 7th. So we're recording this end of July. So this will come up pretty quickly. What
Yes.
do you do these often? Like what does a vision board party look like?
Yeah, so basically, I do these pretty often. I try to do this once or twice a year where I get my community together on Zoom and we have a virtual vision board party. So it's about 2 hours where the first hour I'm giving you a crash course in astrocartography, how to pull your map, a quick brief overview of each line type. And then from there, I provide digital vision board templates in Canva, and we are creating vision boards based on these places. In astrocartography, you have a method where you don't have to travel. It's called remote activation, where you're remotely activating these energies, where these planets are on these angles. So essentially, it's a great remote activation party where we are calling in the energy of these places.
That's awesome. That
Yeah.
is so awesome. Wow. All right, so that's at August 7th at 7 o'clock Eastern. So you can
Yes.
go to faithgraceinspires.com and it's the banner up at the top. So,
Yep.
um, well, thank you so much for sitting and talking and answering questions and just kind of sharing your practice. It's really nice to just to hear about your practice, and
Yeah.
it's super sparkly and fun, and it makes sense that you're Leo rising, to be able to like shine. Um,
Yeah.
so before we close out, do you want to mention anything else, how people can get in touch with you, or anything else that you wanted to promote for your business?
Yeah, so you can find me at my website, faithgraceinspires.com. I'm also at Faith Grace Inspires on all social media. I'm most active over on Threads as well as YouTube.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Faith. And thanks everybody for listening. I'll put a link to AstroSeek and Astro.com and to Faith's website in the show notes. So it'll be easy access for anybody listening to this. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll catch you next time.